Red and blue lights slammed against my house so hard, it felt like the cops were trying to peel the walls off. Officers rushed my porch with hands on their guns, shouting for my wife to come outside. Neighbors snapped awake, flooding their lawns like it was a midnight spectacle. And across the street stood Constance Palmage, our fat, heavy-set HOA president, hugging her robe around her wide frame, smiling like she'd finally caught us. "That's her," she announced. "The suspicious woman." But when my wife stepped out, the lead officer froze. And in that tiny hesitation, I realized Constance had just triggered something she wasn't prepared for. Not even close. Constance Palmage wasn't just the HOA president. She was the self-appointed sheriff of Riverside Heights, a fat, heavy-set woman who moved with surprising speed whenever she smelled control. You always heard her before you saw her, the thud of her sandals against pavement, the rustle of her too-tight windbreaker, the dramatic sighs she used like punctuation. Most people avoided confronting her, not because she was intimidating, but because she was relentless. Constance treated our neighborhood like her personal kingdom, waddling house to house. With a clipboard clutched to her chest, handing out violation notices the way other people handed out Christmas cards. Her talent, spotting problems where none existed. A kid's bike left on a lawn deemed a safety hazard. A porch light left on past midnight, called suspicious activity. But late-night movements, especially by a woman, were her favorite obsession. And when Sarah arrived home after long court days, Constance's curtains would twitch like a cartoon villain trying to hide her bulk behind the window frame. She'd claim she was monitoring property values, but her eyes lingered like she was hunting for scandal. Why target us? Easy. We weren't rich. We didn't kiss the ring. And Sarah, confident, composed, arriving at odd hours, didn't fit Constance's idea of who belonged. To someone like her, that was enough reason to wage war. Before everything detonated, life in Riverside Heights was supposed to be a reset button for me. After 30 years as a union electrician and one bad fall off a scaffold, I needed a place where the nights were quiet and the days didn't demand more than my back could give. The community looked perfect on paper: affordable mortgage, tree-lined streets, decent neighbors, and a garage big enough for the projects that kept my hands busy and my mind sane. Meeting Sarah had been the one bright twist in a life that had seen too much loss. I met her at a community college seminar of all places, sharp, curious, asking questions that made even the instructor double-check his notes. When we married in a simple courthouse ceremony, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: possibility. Moving her into my home felt like building an entirely new foundation. Our routine was simple. I handled light electrical jobs when my back allowed it. She prepared for her upcoming judicial role, spending long hours studying case files and courtroom procedures. Some nights she came home late, still in heels, still carrying that laptop bag like it weighed more than her future. That detail, those late nights, became the crack in our peace. Because Constance Palmage, our fat, heavy-set HOA president, noticed everything. And I mean everything. Her curtains might as well have been surveillance blinds. Whenever Sarah pulled into the driveway past 9 p.m., you could practically feel Constance's eyes pressing against the glass, her broad silhouette shifting to get a better angle. At first it was small things: the lingering stares, the way she'd greet me, with a forced smile stretched tight across her round cheeks, while pretending to check for sidewalk cracks in front of my home. Then came the passive-aggressive questions. Was Sarah staying long? Did she have a permanent address? Was our home properly occupied? There was something in her tone every time she spoke about Sarah. Like Sarah, arriving late symbolized disorder. Like a woman coming and going didn't fit the picture of her perfect suburb. The night Constance knocked at 10:45 p.m., just checking who Sarah was, I felt it: the shift, the warning, the line being drawn. We didn't know it then, but our quiet neighborhood was already turning into a battlefield. The first signs came disguised as helpful reminders. Constance left them on my door like she was dropping off bake sale flyers, except these were warnings about unregistered guests, excessive nighttime activity, and unknown female presence. She didn't even bother to hide her surveillance. Every time Sarah pulled in late, I'd see Constance's fat silhouette shifting behind her living room curtain, the fabric stretching around her wide frame as she craned for a better look. Her binoculars weren't subtle either. She held them with both hands like a tourist at a safari park, tracking my wife from driveway to front door. Neighbors started whispering. A couple avoided eye contact. Someone placed an anonymous note in my mailbox: "Be careful, she's watching your wife." Then the noise complaints started: official HOA forms accusing Sarah of loud arguments, slamming doors, heavy footsteps. Except Sarah hadn't been home those nights. The mini twist hit on a Tuesday at 2:15 a.m. My new security camera caught Constance outside in her robe, watering decorative rocks beside my bedroom window, the same rocks she complained we were disturbing. She was manufacturing her own evidence. Once Constance realized her hints weren't scaring us, she escalated. I came home one afternoon and noticed footprints in the dust near my side gate, small, wide-set, unmistakably hers. She'd stepped onto my property to take photos. The next morning, I found an HOA citation taped crookedly across my windshield, like she'd slapped it there in anger. According to the notice, my work truck was an unauthorized commercial vehicle. Never mind that I'd parked that same Ford F-250 inches the driveway for 3 years. Suddenly, it was a problem. Then she cornered 2 neighbors during their dog walk. I overheard her breathy voice carrying in the dry desert air, as she warned them about a woman sneaking into Derek's home at all hours and potential criminal activity. Her motives were becoming clear: isolate us socially before she moved in legally. But the twist came when a neighbor quietly handed me something. A photo Constance had shown them as proof. It was a grainy image of Sarah, taken from inside Constance's house. Behind the lace curtain, you could see a sliver of Constance's fat arm holding the phone. She wasn't watching us from her yard. She was spying on us from her window. Her harassment turned dangerous the night the police arrived. It was 6:07 a.m. when officers ordered me outside at gun-ready posture. Constance stood across the street in her oversized robe, her heavy frame planted in the grass, like she intended to root there, performing fear for the audience. She claimed she heard screaming, breaking glass, and threats to a woman's life. It was all lies. But lies are loud when spoken through 911. They handcuffed me on my own lawn. Jake, my teenage son, visiting for the weekend, watched from the window face, pale hands shaking. Inside, Sarah stood in pajamas, stunned, explaining to officers that no violence had occurred. Meanwhile, Constance exaggerated gestures from her yard, wiping non-existent tears, doubling down. 45 minutes later, the investigation cleared me. But the damage was done. The neighbors who admired my workshop stopped waving. My workers' comp rep called, concerned about stability. My livelihood felt like it was slipping through my fingers. Then came the mini twist. My attorney obtained the body cam footage. In it, Constance whispered to the officer, thinking she was out of range, "I'll make sure he regrets moving here." The officer's body cam caught every word. Her fabricated reports weren't just harassment anymore. They were evidence. The monthly HOA meeting felt like walking into an ambush. Constance sat at the head of the table, her body spilling over the edges of her chair, a thick manila folder in front of her, like she was prosecuting a federal case. 3 board members, all intimidated retirees, flanked her. "Before we discuss Mr. Castellano's violation appeal," she announced, chin lifting over her thick neck, "we must address concerning behavior at 1247 Maple." She displayed photos of Sarah arriving at night, taken from angles only accessible through her windows. She spoke the word suspicious like she was savoring it. The room shifted uncomfortably. Then it was my turn. I opened my own folder, photos of 4 vehicles illegally parked at Constance's home, timestamps of her 2 a.m. rock-watering video of her trespassing. A couple of neighbors gasped. For the first time, Constance's wide face flushed with something other than arrogance. But she recovered fast. "I move. We investigate his wife's residency status," she snapped. The board nodded. She'd bought herself time. And she had no idea I'd just begun gathering the kind of evidence that burns down entire HOA empires. Her nuclear strike arrived in the form of a certified letter, petition for order of protection. Constance claimed Sarah and I were stalking her, intimidating her, harassing her. She swore under penalty of perjury that Sarah was a suspicious female occupant of unknown origin, and that I had followed her vehicle in a threatening manner. The petition also listed erratic nighttime behavior, which was ironic since the only person awake at 2 a.m. was Constance, waddling through her gravel yard making noise for her own complaints. But then came the gut punch. She'd also filed a report with my workers' comp insurer calling me psychologically unstable. Losing that claim would crush us financially. I felt the panic rising until the mini twist hit. Buried in her petition word for word were statements directly contradicted by the body cam footage. She had lied under oath. Repeatedly. My neighbors Betty, Tom, Linda came forward with their own recordings of Constance threatening them over the years. Our evidence binders grew thick, too thick for any judge to ignore. A hearing was set for December 22nd. Constance prepared like she was going to court to destroy us. What she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was who would be sitting on the judge's bench that day. Her entire war was about to implode. The courthouse steps looked like the entrance to a reality show. News vans idled at the curb, microphones ready. And at the center of it all stood Constance Palmage, our fat, heavy-set HOA president, wearing a navy suit stretched tight across her broad frame, flanked by her 3 board members like they were her personal security detail. She held a leather briefcase against her stomach, as if it gave her authority. When she spotted me, her lips curled into a smirk. Here to intimidate me again, she called out loudly, hoping the cameras caught it. Inside the courtroom, she arranged herself at the plaintiff's table, with all the confidence of a woman convinced she was about to win. She shuffled her papers dramatically, the table shaking under her weight as she leaned forward. "This community deserves protection," she whispered to one board member loud enough for me to hear. Then the bailiff's voice cut the air. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Sarah Castellano." The room stood. My wife entered in black robes, calm and commanding, and in that instant I watched the color drain from Constance's round face. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. She had just realized she'd filed a restraining order against the judge she'd been stalking. "Mrs. Palmage, Sarah," began evenly, "you may present your evidence." Constance's hands trembled as she pushed her oversized briefcase open, retrieving a stack of blurry photos taken from behind curtains. "This woman, Your Honor, has been sneaking around at all hours. I feared for my safety." "Proceed," Sarah said. But that was as far as Constance's confidence went. My attorney stepped forward. "Your Honor, the respondent presents counter-evidence." First came the security footage, high-resolution timestamps, clear as daylight. The screen showed Constance's fat figure shuffling across her lawn at 2:15 a.m., dragging a hose, banging rocks, peering into windows. Then came Betty Kowalski's audio recordings. The courtroom listened as Constance hissed threats into the phone. "I'll make sure he regrets moving here. I run this neighborhood. His wife doesn't belong here." Her voice was unmistakable. Then the financial documents, illegal Airbnb rentals, unreported income zoning violations. And finally, the bombshell body cam footage of Constance whispering to an officer, unaware the mic was live. When her voice filled the courtroom again, "I'll make sure he regrets moving here." A collective gasp rippled across the gallery. Even her own board members stared at her like strangers. Her entire case collapsed under its own weight. Sarah folded her hands, posture, straight, expression, unreadable. But her voice carried the full force of the court. "Mrs. Palmage," she said, "you have filed a petition based on statements that contradict sworn police audio-video footage, witness testimony, and your own recorded voice." Constance tried to speak, just a sputter, barely audible. Her cheeks flushed red, her broad shoulders shaking. Sarah continued unwavering. "This court finds your petition not only unsupported but malicious. It is dismissed with prejudice. Additionally, this matter is referred to the district attorney's office for review of potential perjury filing, false reports, and harassment of a judicial officer." The room erupted, whispers, gasps, stunned silence. Constance's body sagged into her chair. She looked smaller somehow, despite her size, as if the weight of consequences pinned her down. Her briefcase slipped from her knees and hit the floor with a heavy thud. Her board members quietly stood up, stepping away from her like she carried something contagious. "Court is adjourned," Sarah said, striking the gavel. Constance stumbled to her feet, tears streaking down her round cheeks, her once impenetrable arrogance shattered. She avoided my eyes as she waddled toward the exit, breathing hard, clutching her briefcase as though it could shield her from what was coming. But nothing could. Outside, the reporter, waiting on the courthouse steps, asked me how justice felt. I looked down the hallway where Constance had disappeared and said, "Justice feels like the truth finally catching up." And Constance had a lot of truth coming her way. When the courtroom emptied, I finally let myself breathe. For months, I'd carried tension like a knot between my shoulders, fear for my livelihood, humiliation from those false police calls, worry that Sarah was being dragged into something she never deserved. But watching Constance Palmage, our fat, domineering HOA tyrant, collapse under the weight of her own lies, brought a clarity I hadn't felt since before my injury. Outside the courthouse, neighbors I barely knew approached me. People who once avoided eye contact now shook my hand, apologized for believing rumors, thanked Sarah for staying composed, even when Constance hurled accusations with the force of a bulldozer. The story spread faster than wildfire in desert wind. Phones buzzed, text chains lit up. Someone even posted the moment Constance realized Sarah was the judge, her round face draining of color, her oversized suit bunching awkwardly as she stood frozen in shock. The clip hit local social media within hours. That evening, Riverside Heights felt different. Not quieter, just lighter. Tom and Linda brought over a casserole. Betty Kowalski hugged Sarah like she was welcoming back a long-lost granddaughter. Even teenagers, kids who never cared about HOA politics, stopped by to thank us for standing up to the woman who fined them for skateboarding on the sidewalk. For the first time since moving in, I felt like the neighborhood wasn't something to survive. It was something to rebuild. Constance's downfall didn't end in the courtroom. Within 48 hours, she resigned as HOA president due to personal stress, though everyone knew the real reason. Her email was only 2 sentences long, but honestly, it was 2 more sentences than the sympathy she deserved. The DA's office opened an inquiry into her statements, every sworn claim, every fabricated report. Filing false police calls alone carried fines, but lying in a petition to a sitting judge. That was a whole different level of stupidity. Then came the IRS. Turns out, when you run illegal Airbnb rentals out of your home, collect cash, violate zoning codes, and leave a digital trail thicker than a phone book, the auditors get very interested. Constance owed thousands in back taxes and penalties. Her fat reputation as a fearsome neighborhood enforcer melted overnight, replaced by something far more accurate, a bully who finally got caught. HOA reform followed right behind. At the emergency meeting, residents elected me to the board unanimously. Even people I'd never spoken to raised their hands without hesitation. My first motion, no fines without photographic evidence, and a 3-person review panel. Gone were the days of Constance waddling around, handing out citations like Halloween candy. My second motion, transparent budgets. No more financial mysteries hidden behind Constance's executive decisions. My third, a harassment protection clause, forbidding the HOA from targeting any resident without due cause. Every motion passed. For the first time, Riverside Heights finally felt like a community, instead of a dictatorship propped up by a fat tyrant with a clipboard. The best twist came 2 months later. Code enforcement seized Constance's illegal Airbnb furniture and shut down her side business completely, and the fines she was required to pay. Those became community funds used to rebuild the playground she'd blocked for years because she claimed bright colors reduce property value. Watching that playground go up, funded entirely by Constance violations, felt like poetic justice written by the universe. Meanwhile, Sarah's career soared. Her integrity under pressure, her calm handling of a case involving herself, judicial boards took notice. She was asked to speak at conferences about harassment against court officers and how communities could protect public servants. As for me, my workers' comp case finally cleared. The cloud hanging over my finances lifted. I expanded my electrical repair side business, and even started a program offering free safety inspections for seniors. Word spread, and soon families across Phoenix called me when their HOA nightmares spiraled out of control. I never expected to become some kind of neighborhood justice consultant, but life has a funny way of turning your lowest moments into someone else's lifeline. Sarah and I still sit on the porch some evenings watching the desert sky fade to pink. No police lights, no fake violations, no heavy-set tyrant lurking behind curtains with binoculars. Just peace. The kind we fought for. The kind we earned. And sometimes when a new family moves into Riverside Heights, I catch myself smiling. Because now, the neighborhood isn't defined by fear. It's defined by the day a bully finally met a boundary she couldn't push past. And the woman she tried to destroy, the judge in the black robe, became the one who restored order with a single strike of her gavel.